Welcome all the students. This is a practical on the topic regional injuries. Regional injuries, study of regional injuries is very important because the different regions of the body are injured and the injury is whether that is severe or simple. Suppose there is a head injury, the injury is that is a severe one, and stab wounds on the chest, also stab wounds on the abdomen. They are serious injuries because the number of organs are the vital organs may be involved. Now these are the regional injuries. Regional injuries are produced in various parts of the body, either as a result of trauma or violence. That means there should be a history of trauma or there is a history of violence. Head injury is common. Injury to other body part, that is chest and abdominal viscera, spinal cord and extremities are not uncommon. Now we will study these regional injuries as a region wise. Regional injuries, head injuries, that is a very common. Among the head injuries, scalp injury, only scalp injury, skull fractures, intracranial hemorrhage, traumatic subarachnoid hemorrhage and brain injury. These are the that comes under the head injury. Whenever there is a brain injury, the injury is serious one. Then regional injuries, neck injury also, the spinal cord injury also, and chest injuries. Among the chest injuries, the injuries might be by blunt injury, that is by blunt force, or penetrating injuries. Abdominal injuries like this one, blunt injury, blunt force injuries and penetrating injuries. These are the some different regions of the body and the injuries according to the regions of the body. Now coming to the head injuries, what is the medico-legal importance? Head injuries occurs as a result of traffic accidents. That is, traffic accidents are very common and that is called RTA, road traffic accidents. Assaults, there might be violence and assaults leading to the head injuries. These are the medico-legal, all this is medico-legal injuries. And fall from height, fall from accidental fall by accidents also. That means falls on the head. If the brain is affected, the injury is serious one. If the brain is not affected, the injury is simple one. That means depends on not only skull is injured, there will be no matter. But if the brain is injured, then the injury is a serious one. Now, what is before coming to the head injury, difference between concussion and drunkenness? You have studied the drunkenness certificate. Before the person is called under the influence of alcohol or drunkenness, you have to exclude head injury. And now we will compare this head injury and drunkenness. First is the smell, that is a very important. In the concussion there is no smell, and in the drunkenness there is a smell of alcohol. Skin, that is, these are the signs, you have to observe the skin. Skin is pale and clammy and cold in the concussion, and skin is flushed in the alcohol poisoning or drunkenness. Regarding the pulse, pulse is very slow in the concussion, head injuries, and fast and bounding in the drunkenness. Now look for the pupillary reaction. Pupillary reaction is a brisk one in the concussion, and pupillary reaction is a sluggish in the drunkenness. What about the breathing? Signs and puffs are seen in the concussion, and in the drunkenness, breathing is slow, irregular. What about the memory? Memory in the concussion, retrograde amnesia. That means there is a forgetfulness of the recent events. And in the alcohol poisoning, there is a confusion, confused memory. Now, behavior of the patient in the head injury, quite photophobic in the head injury. And in the drunkenness is a abusive. Abusive, that means is a overactive, over talkative, and there is he can not obey the orders, or abusive, he can talk anything, irrelevant behavior, actually irrelevant behavior. Intracranial hematomas, we will study the intracranial hematomas, that means collection of the blood in the cranial cavity. Types of intracranial hematomas, that means hematomas, collection of the blood in the skull, intracranial. That is extradural. We will divide this as an extradural, outside the dura mater. Subdural, below the dura mater, that is called subdural. Subarachnoid, that means the bleeding is in the subarachnoid space. And last one is intracerebral bleeding, that is a hematoma in the intracerebral. We divide this as extradural, subdural, subarachnoid and intracerebral. Look out in this figure, that is a subdural hematoma, that is a below the dura mater. Epidural hematoma above the dura mater and between the skull vault bones. Intracerebral, that means bleeding in the cerebrum, and these are the subarachnoid bleeding is there. Now these bleedings, that is not from one origin. The bleeding of each and every, that is extradural bleeding, is different by different means. Subdural also by different means. How this meningeal hemorrhages occurs, and from where? Epidural bleeding, most common cause is trauma, usually associated with skull fracture. That is, the trauma is the etiology, and source of bleeding is, remember, arterial. Which is the artery? Supplied to the scalp and below the scalp, and that is the epidural middle meningeal artery. That is a very important. This is the arterial bleeding. Epidural bleeding is arterial bleeding, and that is a middle meningeal artery. Suppose there is a subdural hematoma or hemorrhage. What is the cause? Cause is the trauma. But the bleeding source is from venous origin. That is a bridging veins in the scalp, that is in the intracranium. This is a subdural bleeding, that is a venous one, and epidural bleeding is arterial one. And in the subarachnoid space, there is a most common cause is the aneurysm or rupture of this aneurysm, and this is the source of bleeding is the arterial aneurysm. Whenever there is a small aneurysm after the age of more than that elderly persons, the rupture of any aneurysm that will lead to the subarachnoid bleeding, and that is the common cause is the elderly persons aneurysm rupture, atherosclerosis or any hypertension, and that gives the rupture of the aneurysm and gives the subarachnoid bleeding. These are the different types of bleeding from different source, and the collection of the blood in the intracranium that occurs as a epidural, subdural or subarachnoid. One, skull fractures, types of fractures of the skull. The practical is only actually for you have to identify the fractures of the skull by some specimens in our forensic department for the spotters. Now you have to know the different types of fractures of the skull. That is a fissured fracture, that is also called as a linear fracture, or that is also called that is a hairline fracture. Depressed fracture, that means the bone is depressed, that is under the, that is towards the brain side due to trauma, that is called depressed fracture, or that is also called as a signature fracture. Comminuted fracture. Comminuted fracture is the site of impact, and there are the comminuted fracture, the fragments of the skull, there are 2 to 3, and that's why that is called comminuted fracture. Pond or indented fracture. Pond fracture, actually that is not a pond, actually this is the indented cranium. That is for example is the forceps delivery of the fetus, that leads to the depression on the skull, and that is a pond like, that is called also indented type, and this type of fracture is a forceps delivery, during occurs in the forceps delivery. Gutter fracture. Gutter fracture, this is the most commonly is the outer table of the skull is a fractured one, just like gutter. When that occurs, whenever there is a glancing bullet that passes near the skull, that is tearing this outer table and producing a gutter appearance. That's why this is called gutter fracture. Penetrating fracture. Any perforating, for example, penetrating fracture is the bullet injury, entry in the skull that leaves the size of the bullet penetrates. Suppose there is a sharp weapon that is penetrates the skull, penetrating fracture. Suppose a rod that is entered in the skull, penetrating the, that is giving the penetrating fracture. Elevated fracture, that means just like depressed fracture, this is an elevated fracture, that means some parts of the skull bones they are elevated from the not towards the brain but outside the brain, that is elevated fracture. Spider web fracture or mosaic fracture, that means suppose there is a site of trauma is there, but from the site of trauma there are multiple fractures from the same site. spider web, that is called mosaic fracture. Ring fracture, usually that occurs at the foramina magnum, that means the base of the skull, due to fall on the head or fall from height, fall on the also feet also, that will push the vertebral column in the skull, giving the ring fracture. Diastatic or sutural fracture. Sutural fractures, sutures knot, that is sagittal and coronal sutures are there, and they unite at the particular time, and in the especially in the children the sutures are not completely united, and suppose there is a fall on the head and the suture will be fractured in the child age group especially. This is called gaping of the sutures, and that leads to the sutural fracture. These are the different types of fractures: fissure fracture, depressed fracture, comminuted fracture, pond or indented fracture, gutter fracture, penetrating fracture, elevated fracture, spider web or mosaic fracture, ring fracture, diastatic or sutural fracture. These are the different types of skull fractures. We will ask in the Viva what are the types of fractures of the skull. You have to answer this. Now regarding the fissured or linear hairline fracture, the name is the same, that is fissured, linear or hairline fracture. See, this is the specimen in our forensic medicine department, that is the skull, top of the skull, and you look here, there are some fracture points. Now see, this is the linear or that is a hairline fracture, that is a fissure fracture here. And what is about this one? This is a linear fracture or crack involving the outer or inner table or both, caused by broad striking surface on fixed head, that is a broad striking surface on the head. Such fracture cannot be detected by an X-ray. It can only be detected at autopsy. In the autopsy, you have to look carefully for these fissured or hairline fractures. You have to, suppose you are dissecting or doing the post-mortem and opening the skull, and you have to observe that is a hairline fracture. You can wash out the skull, and suppose there is a simple or that is a hairline fracture is there, there is a minimal bleeding along the line, and that will indicate that is a hairline fracture or that is a fissured fracture at the time of post-mortem. That is the post-mortem finding is the diagnosis, because these fractures are missed many times. It is caused by direct or indirect violence. And what are about this? This is a coronal suture. This is a specimen in our forensic medicine department. You have to observe this skull and identify the fracture, that is a hairline fracture or linear fracture. This is a spot, that is an example, or this is one of the spotter. Now another fissure or linear fracture you can see here, there is a linear fracture, that is a fissure like. See, this is also one of this fissure or linear fracture. Diastasis or sutural fracture. In our department, this specimen is there, that is a diastasis or sutural fracture. How to identify? See, this is a sutural lines, that is a sagittal suture and coronal suture. Can you observe here? That is a sagittal suture and coronal suture. And if you just pull out this both bones, you will see the separated suture, sagittal sutures. But you have to pull out the both the parietal bones and try to separate here. Then you will observe the sutures are, that is a fracture along the suture site. Now this is a sutural fracture, and that occurs, that is also called motorcyclist fracture. Why this is called motorcyclist fracture? In children and young adults, a linear fracture may pass into a suture line and causes a diastasis or opening of the weaker suture between bones. That means before fusion of the suture. That's why the injuries are much more common in the young adults or children group. That is also called motorcyclist fracture, because the suture lines are not fused completely, and before fusion, and there is a weakness at the sutural level, and then that will lead to the sutural fracture. Now the most commonly involved suture is a sagittal suture. Common in child abuse syndrome. You know what is child abuse syndrome? That is a battered baby syndrome. That is also called as battered baby syndrome. These are the physical injuries, that is non-accidental physical injuries received by the children from the parent, unwanted child, and these are the neglected children, and there is a purposeful punishment, that is a purposeful violence towards the children, because the children are unwanted. That's why the child abuse syndrome or battered baby syndrome. Here the sagittal suture fracture or sutural fractures or diastasis fracture is very common. Now another fracture is a depressed fracture. That is a commonest spotter among this fracture of the skull. Depressed fracture, easy to identify, very easy to identify this depressed fracture. See, this is a depressed fracture. Now what about this depressed fracture? This is caused by a heavy weapon with a small striking surface. For example, hammer. That is, there is a violence or there is injury due to hammer. This is a small striking surface and that gives the force, and that depresses the bone towards the brain. That is depressed fracture. The fracture bone is driven inward and its shape may be indicate the type of the weapon, because that takes the space of the striking surface, that is a small surface, that is the shape of the weapon. Therefore it is also known as signature fracture, because that leaves the signature on the bone. Weapon leaves the signature on the bone. That's why this is a signature fracture, or that is the type of shape of the, that leaves the shape of the weapon. That's why that is called signature fracture. Cause of death is, what is the cause of death? That is intracranial hemorrhage. That is a depressed fracture. You have to identify. See, this is a linear fracture we talked about in the last slide. That is a linear or that is a fissure fracture. Now this is a coronal suture. This is a coronal suture. You can observe the same, that is a part, that is a spotter. That means this is a spotter. We can see 2 to 3 fractures here. That is a linear fracture is there, depressed fracture is there. Okay, you have to identify this depressed fracture. And the cause of death is intracranial hemorrhage. Now see, signature. Why that is called signature fracture? that leaves the shape of the weapon on the bone. That is a striking surface of the weapon. That means you can identify the weapon, which is the weapon, that is a small striking surface. This is the called depressed. Why that is called depressed? That is the inward displacement of the skull bones. See, this is another depressed fracture that leaves the shape of the weapon. That's why that is called signature fracture. Now we will see the gutter fracture. See, this is a gutter fracture here. There is a specimen here in the forensic medicine department for the spotter. You have to observe this specimen for the gutter fracture also. When a part of the thickness of the skull bone is removed, that is by glancing bullet wounds, that is glancing bullet wounds that touched the outer table of the skull and went away and produces the gutter. That's why this is a gutter fracture. It is usually accompanied by irregular depressed fracture of the inner table. See, this is a gutter fracture. Glancing bullet, that is due to glancing bullet. This is a gutter. Penetrating fracture or perforating fracture. What is the example? Penetrating or perforating fracture of the skull when occur? That is by the common is the bullet. Now see, this is a enter wound, that is entry of the bullet, and that produces the penetrating fracture or perforating fracture. Now this is a clean cut opening due to a penetrating weapon, might be dagger or rod or bullet. The weapon passes through both the tables of the skull. The size and shape corresponds to the cross section of the weapon, that is obvious. The size and shape correspond to the cross section of the weapon. For example, suppose bullet size as a size of the bullet. Now in the Viva you will ask what is the lucid interval. Interestingly, lucid interval, this question is from regional injuries and this question is from the forensic psychiatry. That means this one question belongs to two chapters, regional injuries and in the forensic department. You have to look in the forensic department what is the lucid interval, but at the regional injuries I will explain lucid intervals in the regional injury chapter. What is this lucid interval? The classic presentation is initially brief loss of consciousness following injury. Obviously, there is a injury, loss of consciousness. The victim becomes conscious after concussion and may later collapse after some time, when hemorrhage becomes of enough size to induce the symptoms of the cerebral compression. Now, in simple words, what happens in this one? If there is a road traffic accident and the head injury is there and that is admitted in the hospital, first time he brought with the loss of consciousness, unconscious. Then you start the mannitol, dexamethasone and the supportive treatment to relieve the edema of the brain. Then the patient gets the consciousness. That means at the time of accident he brought to the hospital unconscious. You start the treatment and the patient becomes conscious. After 2 to 3 days he again becomes unconscious. Why he again becomes unconscious? Because there is a bleeding in the brain and the hematoma that produces the brain, and that will result in the loss of unconscious, that is loss of consciousness after 2 to 3 days. And this is a lucid interval. This period of consciousness between two periods of unconsciousness is called lucid interval. This period of consciousness between two periods of unconsciousness is called lucid interval. Now, what is the important? It may range from 30 minutes to 4 hours to the days. That means lucid interval might be 30 minutes or 4 hours or days also. What is the medico-legal importance of the interval? That is lucid interval. This has a great medico-legal significance, as during this time the victim is conscious and well oriented and is legally fit to discharge any duties. That means then after gaining consciousness, then doctor will be discharged. But after after bleeding in the cranial cavity, there will be hematoma that pushes the brain, and that gives to unconsciousness again, and that is the threat. That means medico-legally important. Don't give fitness certificate whenever there is a head injury. You have to observe these cases for 4 to 5 days because of this lucid interval. Don't give the fitness certificate in this lucid interval period, and that is a medical negligence from the doctor. The external hemorrhage cannot be appreciated by plain X-rays. Help of CT scan is required for the diagnosis. Usually seen in the extradural and the chronic subdural hemorrhages. Lucid interval that you can see in the extradural or chronic subdural hemorrhages. And what is the complication of this hematoma? See, this is a hematoma form, and that pushes the brain, and the main is the tonsillar herniation. There is a central herniation. There is a shifting of the brain towards the other side, and these are some herniation that gives the complications. You have to release the pressure. You have to remove the hematoma. How will you remove the hematoma? With the help of surgery, by making burr holes. By making burr holes, you can take out the hematoma and decompress the brain. After decompressing of the brain, patient will recover slowly. That is but what is the importance is the forensic importance of lucid interval. That is the consciousness in between to unconsciousness is called lucid interval. And don't give any fitness certificate in the consciousness period. You have to observe this patient for 4 to 5 days. That's why to avoid the lucid interval, don't give any certificate in the lucid interval. That will be the medical negligence. What is a punch drunk syndrome? That is a punch drunk syndrome, or that is called also goofy. It refers to the chronic changes in the brain in boxers who receive minor head injuries while boxing. Main symptoms are loss of coordination, change in the behavior, speech, memory. Some may have pontine hemorrhage, which are called as boxer's hemorrhage. That means minute hemorrhages occurs in the boxers in the brains, and that minute hemorrhages that gives loss of coordination, change in the behavior, speech, memory, and that is chronic minor trauma, chronic trauma on the skull, that gives punch drunk syndrome. Or now coming to the spinal cord injuries. Spinal cord injuries, that is a concussion of the spine, just like in the railway spine, that is also called railway spine. Whiplash injuries. What is whiplash injuries? That is a very, very common viva questions. What is a railway spine? What is whiplash injury? That is a hangman's fracture also. These are all spinal cord injuries. What are the causes of this spinal cord injury? Causes are vehicular accidents, fall from height, any kind of hard and blunt force impact on the spinal cord. That means the most common is the vehicular accidents and fall from height. Now we will see what is the railway spine. Commonly seen in railway or other vehicular accident. There may be quadriplegia or only lower limb paralysis. Involvement of bladder and rectum is also seen due to spinal injuries. The person may have headache, giddiness and loss of sexual power. The person recover completely within 2 to 3 days. Why this is the railway spine and these are the signs and symptoms? Any external injury may or may not be there. It is due to momentary collision of spinal cord with the walls of the spinal column. This is a temporary injury, that is the concussion or collision of the spinal cord with the walls of the spinal column. That means cord is hit on the spinal column and this is a temporary paralysis. It is a railway spine. Now another is a whiplash injury. You know whip, just like whiplash, throwing forward and coming to the backward. Whiplash injury. See, this is a whiplash injury. When that occurs, it is commonly seen in roadside vehicular accident. It is due to a sudden stoppage of the motor vehicle. What happens after the sudden stoppage of the motor vehicle? It causes the sudden hyperflexion as well as sudden hyperextension of the vertebral column at the level of cervical spine. See, this is a cervical region. See, this is the figure how what happens when you stop the vehicle suddenly. That causes the hyperflexion and hyperextension of the vertebral column at the cervical region. Now what happens then? Spinal cord suffers fatal contusion and laceration without fracture and dislocation of the vertebrae. There is no evidence of fracture or dislocation of the vertebrae. This is the only concussion type whiplash injury. This injury have been greatly reduced by the compulsory wearing of the seat belt. That means you have to avoid this injury by wearing seat belt. You have to avoid this injury, whiplash injury, because this is the forward pushing and backward, that is a hyperflexion and the hyperextension of the vertebral column at the cervical level, that gives the whiplash injury. Now see another regions. I will show only the figures, that is a contusion of the liver. You can see here the contusion of the liver. This is the regional injuries other than the that is the cranium, then the spinal cord. This is the abdominal. Liver is usually affected and leaves the contusion, or there might be rupture of the liver due to road traffic accident. There is a rupture of the liver in the road traffic accident. These are the grievous and that is a serious injury, fatal injury. And there is a puncture of, that is a puncture wound of lung from rib fracture. See, this is a rib fracture, that is a rib fracture that is producing the lung, that is a laceration, that is a puncture of the lung. Now by seeing this lecture, that is by hearing this lecture, role of helmet is very important in reducing the intensity of the traumatic brain injury. That means you have to wear the helmet, and this is the message where you can avoid most time or reduce the intensity of the traumatic brain injuries by wearing the helmet. You can wear the helmet always on the vehicle. Thank you. Thank you.